Welcome everyone. Today we're going to study 1a4a5 and in case white is going to go for any unusual or rare options after that. So in our repertoire after e4, we are opting out for e5 and we're going to many main lines, but in this case we're going to look only at the rare moves which white might play. Uh, to be honest, it might not actually happen in your OTB games. In my games, no one played these rare moves. So, but of course, it's very important to know why these moves are not good and how we can punish white pretty early on. So after e4, e5, white has many options, but in this chapter, we're going to look for moves like queen f3, queen h5, c3, d3, knight e2, bishop b5. So pretty much all the unusual options. We're starting with queen f3. First of all, it's not actually an opening rule to develop the queen as quickly as possible. And in this case, queen is actually even stopping knight, which could have been developed on the f3 square. So there are many things which are wrong with this move, but let's see how we should handle it actually, because the plan for white is pretty simple. They want to put more pressure on the f7 square, and then they would like just to give us a checkmate, which is pretty similar to queen h4, queen h5 lines. But yeah, obviously queen f3 is very dubious, and we're going for this developing move. We're playing knight f6, and we're going to try to prove that the queen on f3 is not a good piece. In this position, for white has, like many options, obviously, but already since queen is on f3 square, it's going to be difficult with the development. But let's see what happens if actually white is going for something very aggressive. g4 is supporting the whole idea of queen f3. White wants to go for g5, attacking the knight on f6, and then developing the bishop on on c4 to put more pressure on the f7 square and basically checkmate us to give us a scholar's mate. And throughout actually the chapter, I'm going to stop at some moments and I'll ask you to pause the video to try to find the best move in the positions. So in this case, you can stop the video after the move g4. You can try to find the best option for black in this case. So yeah, it's a bad move. It's a mistake, g4. And I hope you found the move. It's d5. Since white is doing nothing about the center, or white is just breaking all the opening principles, we're going for the d5. We're breaking through in the center. We have many threats right now, not only attacking the pawn on g4 and the pawn on e4, we also threaten to develop with the bishop all the way to g4. So basically, we're trying to punish white for what they did. And yeah, in this case, of course, white has to do something. In case white takes on d5, we just take on g4 with a tempo. And here, actually, very important moment, because it might seem like bishop b5 could be a nice intermezzo, making us to return with the bishop. But let's not forget that white's queen is actually under attack. So if white queen is under attack in this position, we are not in must to play some good move. In this case, we can play knight c6, because in case white is taking the knight, we can grab a queen, which costs far more than the knight. So yeah, and basically this is already a winning position, because we capture a pawn on d5. We'll be just up a pawn, and with all developed pieces, we're going to have a huge activity. So let's go back, and in case in this position, white is just developing with bishop c4, we're going for c6. We're going to see quite often the c6 move with the idea of going for the d5, and d5 is generally something what we always want to try to do with black if we have an opportunity to do so. And well, again, if again white is trying to go for the g4. Unfortunately, in this case, it's even far worse because after the d5, we're attacking the bishop and the pawn on g4. We want to capture it with a bishop, so there is no time actually for white to handle both of the problems. And yeah, that's it actually. That's the end of the line. All right. In case white is saying, all right, I'm developing, I'm just trying to control the d5 square, which is pretty important in this position. We're we're trying to make the d5 work, and probably just to illustrate you, like d5 is a very interesting move. It's not a bad move, but just after takes, we can play e4, and after queen e2, we take on d5, bishop takes. So this trick is working, because after knight takes, there is a very nice move for white in this position, queen b5, checking and attacking the knight. And well, this is actually a big problem. So just because of this line, we cannot really go for d5 so quickly, but it's okay because we can go for even better option. We can go for b5. We're expanding on the queen side a little bit, but don't worry, we are not weakening ourselves. And okay, here already is a question where to put the bishop. Okay, it seems logical to put it on b3 to keep to keep an eye on f7, to keep the bishop on this diagonal. Well, and we are going for a5. We want to force white to do something. Is white going to play a3 or a4? Because a4 is going to trap the bishop. And in case of a4, which might seem at the first glance more active move, we actually would like to play b4 ourselves, so we can say thank you to white. And yeah, b4 is on the board. And the problem is that while when that knight is going away, the control over d5 square and e4 square is getting, well, the squares are getting less under control, and then we can break with the d5 move. We're getting all the center. We don't have any issues on f7. It's all protected. And here, of course, it's a big question what to do for white. But there are, of course, a couple of moves. You have to defend the pawn on e4, or you take on d5. In case of take on d5, black takes, and d4 trying to break, trying to do something, because if white is not doing anything, we just have a perfect, sorry, not even with red, but with green, because it's beautiful. We have a center and full control over it, and quick development, obviously. So d4 has to be played. There should be some break in the center. And of course, we're going for e4, queen g3. And basically, we have a perfect development. It's not a winning position, but it's definitely there is a small edge for black, but it's very pleasant to play it, and obviously is much easier to develop for black as for white, because there are still some issues white has to solve here. And we can go with a move such g6. You can see pointing out bishop can be developed on g7. At some moments, maybe pointing out at that pawn on d4. Bishop going to a6. At some moment, actually stopping the castling. So many good options here for black. And in case white is opting for the defense of the pawn, which is very logical, trying to stabilize in the center, we're developing our pieces and creating more and more threats. Because after knight is achieving c5, there are going to be two problems, bishop on b3 and pawn on e4. So something has to be done about either bishop or pawn. So that's why white is trying to take, and this position takes. And again, we have a beautiful center. But what happens? What happens if white takes? Definitely there are some other moves. Let me first mention bishop g5. Well, it seems logical, right? It's creating a pin, pinning the knight to the queen. But in this position, we can just develop with bishop b7, defending the pawn on d5. So no take can happen. And in case queen goes to g3, there is actually pretty interesting that in this position, computer gives up a pawn, saying, all right, you can go bishop d6, you can give up a pawn, nothing matters. After queen d7, rook g8, all logical moves. Rook takes pawn, knight g3, knight c5. We're having a huge activity of the pieces, but there might be some questions, like you might think, okay, what to do with the rook and g2? Is it almost trapped? But we have a huge activity, definitely, and huge compensation and initiative for the pawn. But after queen g3, we actually don't have to give up a pawn. We just play g6. We just go for g6, and we don't actually give a pawn. Why should we? Queen is actually a bit awkward on g3. So after knight f3, we go knight h5, asking some questions to the queen. And pretty important moment here that in this position, there's going to be some queen trade, which is unavoidable. Queen cannot go to any light squares because of some knight jumps. And if queen goes to, let's say, g5, then we're going to trade the queens. And we're just going to have a very nice position with the green ones, yeah, with the green pawns, with a very strong center. So that was about queen g3 and bishop g5. So very logical move, you're asking me, we're just dropping a pawn on d5, but we are actually not dropping a pawn, because after bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, queen d5, rook a6. Just look at how active our position is. Even though we gave up a pawn, we actually sold. Can we say like this? We sell a pawn for an activity. Yeah, I guess we can say such thing. So yeah, we are materially down a pawn, but just looking at the pieces, just looking at the position, we are ready to play queen c7, attacking the pawn on c2. After that, we would attack the queen. The problem on g2, there is a problem with development for white. We have also a bishop pair, which is actually materially, it's a material advantage. So we have a bishop pair. Since we are down the pawn, we're not speaking about material advantage, but we have a bishop pair, we have very active pieces, and well, position looks crushing. And objectively, it's clearly better position. Definitely, of course, white can still defend, but yeah, also I didn't mention, sorry, yeah, rook g6 obviously pointing to trying to put more pressure on the pawn on g2. We would like also to march with the pawn all the way to h4, maybe sometimes to h3, who knows. And yes, many questions which white has to answer in that position. So let me go back. All right, so this was the a4 move we looked at. Okay, a4 from black is a huge threat, right? White has to do something. And what happens if a3? This looks like a better way because you're not allowing b4, and b4 is actually cannot be played due to the fact that there is a pin on our rook, right? We cannot yet play the b4 move. So in this position, we're going for... Okay, we're not going actually for this move, but I'm just going to show you. So bishop c5 is a possible move, alternative, as we can say. Maybe if you like it, you can play it. And it's just a developing move. And the only problem is with bishop c5, or I don't know how to say. Bishop is good on c5. Let's put it like this. The bishop is good on c5, but if we play d6, if we bring our beautiful knight to c5, how much better knight would be on c5 than this bishop from f8? And then for our bishop, we can find other square. It could be e7, could be g7. It also depends. Maybe at some moment we will go for d5 eventually. So yeah, knight e2, just some normal developing move. There is not much white can do. Obviously, the g4 is already under control a long time ago. There are no g4 options. So knight e2, knight e7, going for our for the square we would like to. And well, there is a physical way to try to stop knight coming to c5, and it's d4. Looks logical, right? Breaking the center, stopping this knight c5, very nice remaneuvering. But there is one problem. Since the pawn is on d4 and not d3, it weakens the light squares. And looking at the position, we can find already something. We can find bishop a6 move. We're looking very nicely at this diagonal, looking at potential rook on f1 or stopping the castle in some potential lines. And of course, we would like to play now b4. b4 is a huge threat right now. There is no more pin, right? There is no more pin due to this bishop, due to this wonderful bishop on a6. And of course, for example, let's say castle is played, b4. Let's go, attacking the knight, takes. Knight goes back, and here already we're winning. I want to say back, but actually we're winning a pawn, because the problem after e takes d4, there is a pin. The knight cannot jump. The knight cannot take, unless you would like to sacrifice an exchange, of course. And our work is defended. That's actually very important. And that's all thanks to the fact that we developed the knight on d7 first. So we didn't rush, we developed, and then we won the material. So that's why also many times when we are rushing for material, it's definitely better to be better developed and to have more piece activity than to, let's say, be up a pawn. So yeah, that was about d4. d3, this looks like a more solid move. Again, there are no more options of going for this diagonal, for the a6 f1 diagonal. But on the other hand, we can jump with the knight on c5. But yet we don't do it. Actually, yes. In this case, we're not doing it yet. In this position, we can say, in this position, we can say that we already, long time ago, we equalized the position, and most likely we are already even better. So yeah, that's already a good thing. And in such positions, it would be good to have bishop be developed on g7, because in the future, this g6 pawn is going to support the f5 push. We're going to move the knight away, and then we're going to go for the f5. And let's say castle happened, bishop g7, h3, trying to stop ideas of bishop g4, which looks very logical. And we are going for castle. And of course, in this position, we have all the move we would like. We can go for the knight c5, then we can play bishop e6, we can trade the bishops. b4 is also in the picture. f5 could be an idea, just removing the knight, maybe to h5 or to e8. It depends, and then just going for it. Looks very pleasant position. Objectively, it's a very nice small little edge for black. So let's go back, and we're going to check another move. Actually, I don't know where we exactly stopped. Yes. So this is basically it about the queen f3 move. It's yeah, it's not much. It's not much, but of course, it's very unlikely you're going to face it in the game. But of course, definitely, it's important to know how to handle things. Queen h5. On the other hand, there is even like a course on queen h5. I mean, it has been played by the grandmasters. It's a typical trap when you're playing, for example, when you're having some blitz games. So yeah, queen h5 is very important move, because we can lose pretty early on. We can lose in 4 moves, and we have to try to avoid that, right? We don't want to lose in 4 moves. So what's the main threat? Obviously, it's attacking the pawn on e5, and potentially, after developing the bishop on c4, attacking the pawn on f7. So yeah, we definitely first we handled the first threat. The first threat was attack on the e5 square. We're defending the e5 pawn very logically with our knight. We're developing a piece. But the next move, is bishop c4, which immediately attacking our pawn. But let's first start with another move. It's possible that it's going to be played, but not so likely as bishop c4. So in case bishop b5, which, I mean, actually it's very logical. You want to take the knight, and then you want to take a pawn on e5. It's pretty logical. But after knight f6, we're already attacking the queen, and there are some issues. So, well, the problem is e4 is hanging, queen is hanging, the knight e4 is going to be the next move, after which we're going to attack the bishop and potentially also the pawn on c2. Sorry, arrows, don't listen to me. All right, so this is definitely not very logical. But bishop c4, super logical, just going for checkmate. It's very important to know how to react here because we could lose in the next move. And I would say that many beginners would start with playing something like knight f6 and trying to attack the queen, and well, then there is going to be a checkmate. And just to illustrate, I'm going to show you this, just for fun. We're not accepting this fun, and we're not going for this fun. So definitely there is only one good move in this position. How can we defend the pawn? I mean, we can push d5, which is not good. Definitely we can defend with the queen, which is not good, because we would be in the way of our pieces. But there is only one move, and it's g6. With the g6, we're stopping all the checkmate ideas. But white is persistent, and they want to still checkmate. They are attacking from f3, our pawn on f7. Well, now we develop our knight, because now we're physically stopping the ideas of taking on f7. And in this case, not only we stop that idea, but we also introduce a new idea, since our knight can go in the next move to the d4, attacking both queen and the pawn on c2. And let's not forget about the pawn on e4. It can also be loose at some moments. So here white has some options. Let's start with the worst possible one. So d3 looks like a normal move, defending a pawn on e4. But after knight coming to d4, attacking the queen has to return back. And in this case, you can see as if white developed one piece, and there are like a couple of pawn moves being played. While we have actually two pieces already outside, and knight is very nicely located on the d4 square. But in this moment, actually, I would like you to stop the video and try to find the best move for black. So I hope you found the move. It is definitely like connected with the fact that we are always looking at this move. Can we play in this position? Can we not? And since white lost a lot of time moving pieces around, bishop, queen, pawn's a bit passive, we have time for the d5. Let's go. We're breaking the center. What white can do, I mean, white has to take, and then we're going for b5. We are not yet taking on d5, but we are playing b5 first. And bishop goes back to b3. Here we can already at some moment even take the bishop, but we have another amazing follow-up, which is a5. We would like to trap the bishop. And this is actually a huge problem right now for white, because what do you actually do? How do you stop that? In this case, you must go for one move, because if you play a4, there is a big problem. Knight takes a4, pawn takes. The structure is spoiled, double pawns. There is an isolated pawn on d3. On d5, we're going to capture it very soon, because after queen takes d5, actually we're also attacking the pawn on g2 all the way there. And yeah, the material is equal. The pawn structure is awful for white. Is definitely clearly better position for black. So c3 is very logical, because white is not allowing the double pawns and spoiling this pawn structure. But we have to make a move, right? We have to go for a4, because okay, if we would take on the b3, then it would not make so much sense. So we go for a4, we let white to take on d4, and let's look at these beautiful pawns. You're tripling your pawns. A takes b3, queen takes b3, looks logical. In case d takes e, there is actually a very nice move. You can also stop the video at this moment, try to find it. It's not so difficult, so try it. I hope you found the move. It's actually very beautiful. Rook takes d2, a2. It's very typical actually in such positions, and especially when you have this pawn, this piece is standing here. So you're going to lose a lot of material in this position because there is, rook cannot take. The pawn is going to be promoted, and if you move some of the pieces away, then you're going just to win this rook on a1. So well, it's not really working. But queen b3 looks logical, not allowing this rook a2 ideas. So in this position, our move might seem a bit illogical to some people who think that when we are down material, we shouldn't trade pieces. There is such a rule. If you're down material, it's better not to trade pieces. But of course, every rule has exceptions. And what is important to remember is whether or not you have active pieces, whether or not actually in this current position, if we're looking at the current position, maybe you're better if you're trading those pieces. Because after queen takes d5, it looks like we are allowing the queen trade. We're allowing the queen trade, that's true. But the problem is for white that there is only one active piece in the position, and the only active piece in the position is queen. And if we're trading one active piece for one active piece, our queen was not so active on d8, but right now it's active, there we are going to have one active piece left, because we had originally, like knight, still was an active piece. And even though we're down material in this particular position, we're looking further. First of all, we have bishop pair. Second of all, we have many threats. In the position, knight can come on b4. Okay, there is a question, what do you do about this pawn? Sorry, I will rather put it with the red color. What do you do about the d3 pawn, a2 pawn, and so on and so on? Let's say if take happens, we're going forward for the knight b4. There were two threats already. We actually gave up our second pawn after d takes e5, but we don't care. Knight a3 stopping the idea of knight c2, knight takes d3, taking the bishop, rook takes, and b4. And our bishops are going to be so active. We are going to, so we just won one pawn back. We're going to win another pawn on a2, potentially also b2. Okay, we have a pawn on c7 hanging, but it doesn't matter because we're going to have a huge activity in the position, and our bishops are going to be monsters and going to dominate the position. So that's why please don't judge so much the trade of the pieces and think, okay, if you're trading the pieces, it's always better for the side with more material, but it's actually not always the case. Going back, so in this position, we were discussing which moves white has, and well, we went through d3. The next move, which looks logical, c3, is trying to stop the knight coming to d4. And it looks like it's a good move, stopping knight to d4. But we're going bishop d7, d3, and there is some issue or slight issue with the bishop. And knight a5 is a pretty typical idea, especially when a pawn is not touched yet. So if pawn would be already on a4, maybe this knight a5 would not make so much sense. But yeah, knight a4, a5 definitely makes huge amount of sense because bishop is a key piece for white in this position. It's always targeting f7 square. It's always so beautiful in this diagonal. So we have to try to do something about it. So bishop b5. It's of course logical for white to keep the piece on the board. And after castle, actually castle interestingly, in this position is a threat, because after castling, we're starting to go for the d5. That's what we wanted. We either wanted to get the bishop from c4, just trade it with a knight, but if bishop moves, we are actually ready to go all the way, all the way forward with the d4. So in case knight e2, just developing, we are having d5 already, and while we're already clearly better in this position, we have finished the development on the king side. We have bishop g4 threat coming, and there is so much. There is a pressure on the e4 square. We can always go for c6, b5, trying to cut the bishop somewhere, let's say on c2 square. Well, there are many threats in the position, and it's definitely tough to handle for white. So bishop g5 looks more logical, right? It's a developing move like knight e2, but bishop g5 is creating a pin, which is a bit unpleasant, right? It's a bit unpleasant. And due to the pin, we cannot already go for the d5 since our knight is pinned and cannot defend the pawn. So in this position, and actually very often after bishop coming to g5, it's a very topical idea to go for h6, asking the bishop a question: what would you like to do? Do you want to stay on this diagonal with the opportunity of returning back at some moment? Or you want to be cut out potentially with some moves like g5? Or you want to take maybe the knight? It's also possible. It's definitely possible. And definitely it's very committing already for white to decide immediately what do you actually want to do with the bishop. Of course, if bishop takes, then we just have a bishop pair. We just got a bishop, and potentially this bishop might be also not the best piece, because after, let's say, we push it away, it's going to stand, let's say, on c2, just going to be another pawn potentially. But yeah, let's see, let's go back. Yeah, and after h6, it might feel more logical to go bishop h4, because you keep your bishop, you keep the bishop, you keep the pin. The d5 is still not a move. And here we have to think, what do we want to do? We would like to go for d5. We would like to do it. How can we do it? We're going for g4. Sorry, for g5. We're going all in. We're going g5. We said A with h6. We say B with g5 in this position. And after bishop goes to g3, we're going hello. Hello, the king, which is standing in the center of the board. The undeveloped pieces yet, uncastled king, and d5 is in the position. We're fully ready for it. Bishop's g4 is a huge threat all the time after d5 is played. What to do? What to do for white? Big problems. E takes d5, bishop g4. Attacking the queen, what do you do? Queen e3, queen d5 with a double attack, already winning material, attacking the bishop, and pawn on g2. So big problems. In case bishop takes the pawn on e5, which might seem like an alternative, we're going c6, attacking the bishop, and we are forcing it basically to go to some war square. But taking on e4, take is, I mean, it's a must. And in this position, we have another double attack, knight c4, attacking the bishop and the pawn on b2. So bishop takes. It looks logical, it's forced. If you want to keep a pawn, you have to trade the bishop. You have to find intermezzo move. Queen takes f6. And in this position, big question, do you want to trade the queens? Do you want to go away? And if queen e2 is played, if white doesn't want to trade the queen, we're going queen f4. And our knight, it feels like it can be taken, but it's actually not, because there is a huge threat of queen c1. So, and in case of a trade, actually that's what you might, again, be afraid of, trading the queens when you're down a pawn. In this case, we're still down a pawn. Queen f6, bishop, just look at the position. There is only one active piece for white. We have knight, we have bishop, we have castled king, we have bishop which is ready to get into the play somewhere. Rooks are getting ready to go all in as well. Bishop pair. So it's definitely a great position. B4, what white is doing, white is trying to not to lose a pawn actually, because the pawn was attacked was under attack. Move a go. A5, let's go. And we are having already rook joining the game from the A file. And well, actually there is a huge threat on b4, right? You want to take here because there is a pin. So I don't know actually what white should do. Maybe, I don't know, even if a3 is possible, but this looks like completely lost position, at least on the queen side. I don't see much, because even after sorry, let me remove some of the arrows. Let me remove this. Even after a3 is played, we're taking on b4. If pawn takes, we have b5, and there is a problem on this file due to all the spins. All right, let's go back. So we looked at the c3 move, and in this position, if white is trying to be still so persistent with this idea of attacking the f7 square and play something like queen b3, well, we have bad news for white. And actually in this position, I also would like you to pause the video and try to find the best move for black. So I hope you found the best move. And even if you didn't find at some moment the best move, don't worry, because we're all learning and we're all doing mistakes, and top grandmaster do mistakes. So don't worry, definitely. We have a beautiful move. We have knight d4. We don't care about the f7 pawn. We're just targeting the queen, and actually a pawn on c2 as well. Because after bishop takes f7 check, we are going away with the king, and there is a problem because this connection of the queen and the bishop cannot be kept for white. Because after queen c4, there is b5. And the bishop is going to be lost. So that's how we win. So queen b3 is a bad move. Knight e2 looks logical, and well, it's stopping knight d4 idea, it's developing a piece. It looks like a great move. But there is one thing. We are having a knight which can attack the bishop. And there is actually no c3, which was played for bishop to be hidden, let's say via b5, a4, and c3, c2 square. So in this position, it's not possible. So we can say the bishop is almost gone, unless you want to go on d3, which I don't think many of us want to place the bishop. First of all, it's not only located as a big pawn on d3, it's locating it's very bad bishop, but also it's in the way of the pawn. Let's say if there would be no pawn on d2, I could even understand it could be a good position. But with the pawn on d2, I mean, we would like to develop the bishop from c1. In this case, we cannot. The bishop is just on the way, in the way of the pawn. So anyway, let's see this line. It's still possible. Bishop g7, we just continue developing. Castle, and yeah, b4, knight goes back. We're attacking a pawn on b4, a3. And here, of course, white says, all right, we kick the knight from a5. We would like to return our bishop back, but I'm sorry, but we're not going to be allowed, and we're already pushing for d5. And yeah, definitely we solved all of our issues. White is still having a lot of problems to solve, and it's definitely so much pleasant to play with a clear edge for black. In case of bishop b3, of course, it also looks logical. But in this case, white is saying that white is giving up a bishop, which we're accepting. In some of the lines, we're not taking immediately, but in this particular case, we do, because we would like to follow up with a d5. The d5 is a move we are definitely looking at many times in the position, if we can play it or not. And that's why we had to take the bishop on b3, because we had to follow up with a d5. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to play d5. d3 looks logical, defending the e4 pawn. And potentially, if we take, of course, white wants to take on e4 with a pawn. And yeah, also very, very nice move, h6. So maybe not all the time, but it could be a very annoying idea for white to play bishop g5. It could be and in this particular case, yeah, we can see that we have time to play h6. We don't allow bishop g5 if in case bishop e3, white also has to take care of all the bishop g4, d4, maybe queen d7, knight h5. I mean, so many moves for black. I mean, an enormous amount of moves and enormous amount of threats. So yeah, h6 is definitely a good waiting prophylactical move in this position. And well, we're just having a fun time playing this position. We don't have issues. We're finishing the development soon. We're putting the bishop on g7, castling. We can push for f5 later, but definitely we have such threats as bishop g4. That's why white has to do something about it, playing something like h3, let's say. And yeah, we're just playing. We will see. Maybe at some moment we might take on e4, but definitely it's a huge we put a huge pressure on the e4 pawn. So bishop d3 we looked at. So what happens actually if white's doing none of those and just defends the bishop by the pawn? It actually looks the most logical because bishop on d3 is not a good piece. Bishop on b3 is going to be taken. So why to spend time on bishop b3 if we can keep the bishop, but we can improve our pawn structure? So the thing is, if let's say we would take, which we're not doing, if we would take on c4, pawn takes, then this pawn is fulfilling one of the functions of the bishop. It's targeting the d5 square and not allowing us to play d5 ourselves. So, of course, there is another option for a function of the bishop, which is targeting f7. But of course, if we have to say goodbye to the bishop, let's say it on the better terms. I'm talking it from the white's perspective, obviously. So d3 is a very logical move. That's why we're not taking. We're going to take at some moment, I guess. I mean, not probably in all positions, but most likely we'll take the bishop, but not yet. We don't need to rush. Bishop g7, we are continuing our development. Knight c3, bring in another piece, trying to stop the d5 break, which we would like, of course, to execute. Castle, we finish our development. We'll figure out later what we're going to do. And in this position, there are, of course, a couple of moves. So let's start with very logical developing move, bishop g5. Bishop g5, bringing out the bishop, creating a pin on the queen. And yeah, again, one more piece, which stops the idea of the d5. Also, there are some threats, by the way, with this move. Knight would like... Sorry, my arrow went totally wrong. Knight would like to jump to d5 and cause some damage. That's why it's very important, not only due to the fact of this threat, but generally, we already had this h6. We would like to ask bishop a question. What do you want to do? Are you staying on the diagonal h4 d8? So going back. Or you would like to take on f6, or you would like to go all the way back? This is definitely a question to the bishop, and in most of the cases, bishop goes back because white would like to keep this pin. And here we go with a c6. And now we have already ideas. And of course, okay, let's say also we're stopping the knight d5 jump. That's another very important idea we're stopping. But not only that, but we're introducing idea of d5. Of course, not instantly, because we cannot go instantly. We still have issue of the spin. But we threaten to play g5, kicking the bishop from the h4 square. After bishop goes away into g3, then we would like to go for the g5. For the d5. So these ideas are already in the position. And yeah, in some case we can also take the bishop on c4, but in case we take the bishop on c4, most likely we will not go for the d5. It doesn't make sense anymore. So let me just remove this these arrows just very quickly and try to point out with arrows. So if we take on the c4, pawn takes on the c4, then we can go for something like d6, bishop, sorry, let's put like this, d6, bishop, e6, so such development, because we don't want to undouble the pawns of the on the c4. All right. That was the move bishop g5, wasn't it? Oh, 1 second. It was actually the d3 move. It was knight coming to e2, and it was fully the line of queen h5. Wait, let me just check a second. Did we look at everything? 1 second. I just want to make sure we didn't miss. Oh wait, there was the line. I'm just trying to. Yes, of course. We looked at the bishop g5 here. Sorry. Okay, we looked at bishop g5 here. But there is another move like h4. So first of all, one of the good things about the move is that white wants to go with the h5 continuing, and the bad thing definitely is that it's allowing some problems on the g4 square. So that's why in this case we have d6 move. Definitely we are not playing d5 because the square on d5 is overprotected. We cannot do it yet. But we play d6 and we would like to develop the bishop all the way to the g4. Knight goes to g3, trying to introduce again the threat of the h5. But we go bishop g4, first of all attacking the queen and also trying to take care of the problem of the h5. And after queen e3, we go for c6. So now we kind of took care of the h5 square. We would like to introduce the d5 again, which is a very, very important idea in these positions. So yeah, actually that's the end of the line. So in case after the d5 is played, there are going to be some issues for white, because after d5 is played, there could be a d4 idea. The h5 is not yet working, queen is misplaced, bishop cannot be developed due to the queen on the knights. Let's say bishop cannot jump over the queen coming all the way to g5, so it's a little bit difficult for white to finish the development. So we definitely are in the driving seat in this position. So so if h4 doesn't work, what about h3? And h3 looks very logical because h3 is stopping all ideas of the bishop g4. So after d6, it's not anymore a threat. But of course, we have to play some moves. We have to develop in some way. So d6 looks definitely logical. And we're still, we are not rushing with the stake. We still have it. We still have it in the pocket. We're not going for it here. Bishop g5. h6 attacking the bishop. Bishop has to go back. c6. Okay, now there are two threats already in the position. We have b5 and d5. a4 trying to go back with the bishop, and that's the exactly moment where we see bishop goes back. All right, we take it exactly in this moment. So pawn takes, bishop e6, attacking the pawn, pawn defense, and well, in this position we have quite some moves, many opportunities. Starting, let's say, with the main move, which you will try always to make it work, d5. This move can work. It's optional, but there is a better move which you can start with before going for the d5. Knight e4, super nice sacrifice of the piece, because after you're going to see the position, you will allow it, but we're not going for such a crazy line, but definitely it's possible. So knight e4, the whole idea is after f5, knight goes away, we go for f4, bishop goes away, and d5. Just look at this pawns, just look at these bishops. This is an amazing position for black. Of course, if we had an extra piece, I mean, not extra piece, but if you don't have piece, it will be completely crushing. But since we're down a piece, this position is, I mean, there is a compensation. Objectively, it's around equal. Like computer would say it's around equal, even though it's very tough to say. I would say that still is much more pleasant and easier to play for black, but we're not advising this. But okay, not yet this move. So knight e8 is also possible with the idea of going for the f5 as many times a move in these positions. But in this position, there is a very nice move, rook c8. It's a waiting move. It's not showing yet all the cards, but we're already putting some pressure on the pawn on c2 and introducing the d5 ideas. So in case of a long castle, it would be a big mistake. I mean, it's a dubious move, but it's actually a big mistake because after queen c7, we're putting even more pressure on the c2 pawn, even though it's not yet visible because there are two pawns standing here. But after we break with the d5, or we break with the b5, the file is going to get all the way open. And that's going to be the case when white will start getting issues. In case of a short castle, which makes more sense for white to be a bit more solid, we're going for the d5 anyway, because after takes, we have a super important little move, e4. We sacrifice the pawn on d5, we go e5, attacking the queen, opening up the bishop from g7 all the way to a1 on the diagonal, and after knight takes, we're not even taking the knight. Oops. We're not taking the knight and then capturing the rook, but we're playing bishop d5. We're first pinning the queen, sorry, the knight to the queen. Knight f6 with a check intermezzo, bishop f6, queen goes away. We have option of taking the rook, but first we play rook c2, attacking the knight on e2. Too many pieces, too many pawns are hanging in the air. And in this actually particular case, we are not down material anymore, but we are starting to take the rook and the knight and the pawn on b3. Too many threads. The position looks so good for black. So that was actually all about queen h5. It's definitely playable, but it's not very likely you're going to face it OTB, let's say classical. I faced queen h5 OTB, OTB, but it was blitz or rapid. I would say blitz. International Master played it. Actually, the owner of the course, I was playing him during the European Rapid and Blitz Championship in Zagreb in 2023. So it was fun. I got a good position with with black, but unfortunately, due to the time management issues and I'm not so good at blitz, I lost that game. But it was definitely fun. So what else can be played? We had already queen f3, queen h5. Let's go and look at the move c3. You might seem it might seem very illogical move, but actually it makes sense. We want, I mean, not we want, but white wants to go for the d4 push and capture on the d4 with the pawn. And here is going already very important moment, because here we are going for d5 move. Why? Because if we can take, okay, in this case we're going to look at another moves, but if we can take on the d5 with a queen and there is no knight c3 possible, then it's already a good thing. We can go for d5. So definitely, okay, sometimes we may go for d5 when knight c3 is possible, but definitely when there is no knight c3 possible, it's a good thing. And it's already possible on the second move, so let's go for it. Let's first look at the less critical, knight f3. So, well, knight f3 is basically, let me mention that this c3 move is called a MacLeod attack, and yeah, basically the plan, which I already said for white, is to capture on d4 with the pawn. And yeah, knight f3 was one of the moves as well, but of course it's not too much challenging, even though it looks at the first glance challenging because it's attacking the pawn on the e5. But here we're going with the flow. We're taking the pawn on e4. Knight is under attack. Knight must take on e5. Otherwise, there was no sense in this knight f3 move. And queen e7. Very, very precise move. Actually was supposed to ask you what you would play after knight e5, but I forgot. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, let's continue. I'll ask you something else then. So knight c4. Knight has to go away somewhere, and knight cannot go to any of the squares, so there is only one square actually left available. So knight c4, knight c6. We're continuing our development. We have queen and knight developed. And after bishop e2, we just develop our final piece on the queen side, and we are ready to castle long. We're ready to continue development with knight f6. I mean, if white is going to castle short, which is very likely, we might even push the pawn all the way to the h3 square. So, yeah, definitely very simple play for black and potential attack on the queen side. Sorry, king side. All right, knight f3, d3. D3 is already saying that I am okay with a worse endgame. And well, there are many moves which we could play in this position, but definitely the option which we're going for, and going for the worst endgame for white, is definitely something good. So we take on e4, we trade the queens. First of all, king is already cannot castle, it's on the open file, so potentially some rook coming to d8 with a check and tempo are possible. So we are going for the bishop c5. It's very important, it's very precise move, because we're attacking, we're developing and attacking with a tempo and not allowing already moves such as bishop e3. So after f3, we're going to play prophylactical move here, because the next developing moves are, it doesn't really matter, the order of the moves doesn't really matter, but the next prophylactical move matters a lot. We play a5. Because we would like to not allow this b4 idea, and potentially we have an a7 square for a bishop to go away in case, let's say, something like knight d2, knight b3 is going to be played. So yeah, and of course we would like to go for the f5 break. We would like to create a problem on e4 and develop the knight. We can castle. We don't have actually to castle because it's already an endgame. We will see how depending how white is going to react, we're going to react accordingly. But definitely we have the edge in this position, and we're the ones who are in the driver's seat in this position. So if not d3, let's go for a principled e takes d5, which should make the most of the sense. But after queen takes d5, that's actually an issue which comes for white. There is no knight c3, which, let's say, if we go all the way back and black is playing d5 on the second move, here we have a Scandinavian. So yeah, that would be nice always to try to target the queen, but it's not actually possible in this particular case. So c3 takes queen d5, and well, knight f3. Knight f3 is definitely coming, yeah, just developing move. But there is a big question here. What happens if if black is accepting the provocation of white and going for e4? That's what we're going to find out. Knight d4, and here knight c6. It's pretty fair to mention, let's say, if black is playing, why am I always saying white? Sorry. If black is playing c5, then let's just make move on the board. After knight b5, there could be some, questions there in the position. So knight is defended here. But why to allow such thing if we can just go with a knight to c6 and offer a trade of an active piece? Knight on d4 is a great piece, and we would like to trade it. So now already knight b5 doesn't make too much of a sense as it would in the other position. knight c6, queen c6, and now we have the active piece on the board. Queen is active, and white has to do something about this pawn on the e4 because it's a very good pawn. So d3, pawn takes, queen takes, and we go bishop d7. We are ready to castle long. We're ready to finish our development. Go with the knight to f6, bishop to c5. There are still some issues for white. For example, how do you develop the bishop from f1? Where do you castle? How do you develop all these pieces? So definitely some issues to solve for white, and it's clearly better position for black. d4, very logical. We have to do something as white. And we're going with a knight. I mean, we're not yet taking on d4. We go for something more principled. We're going to attack the pawn second time, actually third time already. So here's a question for white. White defends the pawn or takes on e5. So let's say if take on e5 happens, we're taking the queen. We're going again to do that end game, which is actually already, I think, much better version than the previous endgame. Bishop g4 check. f3. We have an intermezzo move. We castle long and we give a check. King go to e1. King again cannot castle. And we have already 2 pieces out. Actually, the rook is also can be counted as an active piece. King is castled. Well, it's not so important for an endgame, but still, king is in the safety, we can say so. And definitely, if white is trying to keep and try to keep material defending the pawn on e5, we're going to open up the e file and we're going to have a huge initiative. So yeah, definitely a big danger for white in this endgame. Case of bishop e3, which looks like a defending move, but not so beautiful as knight f3, let's say. We're going to go for the bishop f5. Bishop f5 is a rare move, but it has a very good idea in mind after it. We're looking at the knight on b1. And what do we want to do? We would like to take on b1. After rook takes, we would like to take on d4 and develop our bishop to b4 with a check. Let's see. Can we show it in some line? All right. First, let's see what happens if c4 is the move, because it's attacking the queen. Well, after queen a5, bishop d2, there are some problems on b2 and d4. So the material is falling. It's not really possible to play. So, and here knight f3. So takes on d4 happens. If knight takes, we have a long castle. We're putting actually an enormous amount of pressure on the queen on d1. We put the pressure on the pawn on g2. We're finishing development in a couple of moves. 3 moves we need just to finish the development. And there are, again, big questions for white to answer regarding their pieces and development. Was it fully? Yeah, so here in this position, if c pawn takes, yeah, that's an illustration actually of the line which I was trying to show you earlier with what is the idea of the bishop f5 move actually. Because after takes on d4, takes with the pawn, bishop takes on b1 the knight, queen takes, and there is a bishop b4 move. So we're kind of already winning a material unless white wants to move the king away. I mean, that's the only way of how you keep material. Otherwise, we're winning a pawn on d4. But after a long castle, I don't think that this pawn is going to be long staying there on the d4 because there are big problems. I mean, huge problems on the d file. I don't know how white is actually holding in this particular position. So yeah, that was the end of the line. So knight f3 looks more logical to defend the pawn in this way. So yeah, what white wants to do, white is developing the piece and also defending the pawn on the d4 at the same time. 1 second, go back. And again, bishop f5 is the move. We've already played it before, and we go again for the same move with the same idea. We would like to take on b1 and one of the lines. I mean, of course, first take on d4, then take on b1, and then we're going to have this bishop b4 idea. So that's kind of it. So in case white is taking on e5, which looks like white is winning a pawn, we're going for the endgame again. We castle long with a tempo on knight d2, and we're going for the development knight e7. We're going to go for the g6 in the next move, attacking the pawn on e5. We're going to take it because there is no way that white could defend the pawn on the e5 in the next move. So we're just going to grab the pawn on e5, win the material back, and we have very pleasant endgame against white. Okay. Bishop e2. Looks like a very logical move. White wants to castle as fast as possible. But in this position, we have, I mean, we have two moves actually. We have e takes d4. We can go immediately for the material. We can immediately go for this line where we are winning a pawn because after takes, we can take on b1, bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop takes, and after long castle, well, there is a problem on d4, and let's say rook d1, knight g7, we're going to anyway win this pawn in the next two moves. But after castle, takes, we're just winning the pawn. Still, we might say that it's not so obvious because there is the bishop for white. Maybe potentially could be some issues on the queen side for black, but definitely just a pawn up. So that's why I would advise rather to go for the long castle in this position, just to keep more pressure. It's actually very annoying for the opponent when you're just keeping the pressure going. You're not willing to go back. You're not willing to release the pressure just yet, but the pressure is building up. And in this case, big question, do you take on e5? I mean, that sounds like a very logical move. Let's look first bishop e3, developing the pawn on d4 again. Takes, bishop takes on b1, and we have basically the same idea of bishop coming to f4. What's after takes? Bishop f4. If bishop to d2, then there is a problem, of course, on the d4. And other than that, king has to move, and that would mean that king is not castled, cannot be castled any longer. So yeah, the more principled way is d takes e5, definitely. Knight takes e5, and after trading the queens, we can say again, all right, we traded the queens. And another thing which I constantly hear about trading the pieces, trading the queens, is that the more pieces you trade, you're equalizing more, it's getting drawish. Actually not. I mean, you have to try to learn the mastery of the exchanging of the pieces, because the way you exchange, if you exchange the good piece for a bad one, then of course you can get worse position. If you exchange opponent's good piece for your bad one, then your position is going to get better. So it's very important to to find the balance with all these rules in chess and all the exceptions, and it's important to take every position as a unique one, and of course play accordingly. So after castle, knight f6, knight b2 d2, and we develop with the bishop c5 basically all our pieces in the game. Sorry, rather green. The next move we will have rook joining the party, even though it looks very very balanced, very harmonious, but we have much more active pieces. This position, we're having huge initiative. The most important is definitely not to play some slow moves in this position, just waiting, because then white would, of course, develop the pieces and also have some good chances. But we just have to keep the pressure going. We just have to bring the pieces all the way into the action and try to claim our advantage. All right. So we looked at the no, sorry. We looked here at bishop e2. Okay. And at the castle. Mhm. So I think that was it regarding the c3 line. just double checking because one of the lines it was yeah, we had this endgame. Okay, perfect. So the next move we're jumping into is another move similar to the c3 move, but it's another pawn. It's a d pawn, so it's d3. This move also may transpose to some openings, to some other chapters, because at some moments white is going for the d3. But one of the things is definitely what we can already optically see is that the bishop will never be developed outside of the pawn chain, which is already advantage for us, right? Like bishop is not going to be annoying anywhere in c4 in the Italian lines or the b5 for Lopez lines or Spanish. So d3 is played. How do we react here? There are quite a few moves how black can react. And let's first start with a d5 because it seems like a logical move. So after takes, queen takes, knight c3. Knight is attacking the queen. Bishop b4, we can immediately pin the knight, so there is no threat anymore. And after bishop d2, bishop takes, we have knight c3, knight c6, f4. Some issues on the diagonal are starting to arise. But after knight g7, this position is normal. It's around equal. I mean, there is not much. I mean, definitely we equalize this position. There is not huge problem for black. Sorry. But definitely we wanted something more after d3. So after knight f6, it's I mean the most oftenly actually played in this position. It's the most popular move after d3, after second move d3. So after knight f3, the problem was the f4. So after f4, then after e takes f4, bishop takes f4, we have a very interesting position. But the thing is, we would appreciate this position more if we have the other knight standing on c6, not this one on f6, because there are always some e5 moves attacking the knight. So so that's why looking through around all this kind of moves, we decided to go for the knight c6. Knight c6, first of all, of course, it's a developing move. We're developing our knight. c6 is a perfect square. And as we just looked at the knight f6 lines, the problems with f4 will not be there any longer. First of all, let's look what's happening after knight f3. And not much is happening in this chapter because after knight f6, we're going to transpose with the move order of e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d3, knight f6. So we're not going to see anything more here, but you can check it in another chapter. All right, so g3. What happens after g3? And g3 is actually a pretty bad move. I would like actually to for you. I would like you to stop the video for a moment and try to find the best move for black. So I hope you found the move. So it is actually the d5. We already looked and a solution to many of the moves was d5 already. I mean, many times. But in this position, is even you can see it more clearly because after d5, if pawn takes, queen takes d5, there is a huge problem. The rook is actually under attack. There is not even time for white to go for knight c3 because there is a problem. And let's after queen f3, queen a5, check. We're not trading the queen. And now we can understand why we're not trading, because queen is standing in the way of the pieces. So queen on f3 is not a good piece. And after queen a5, knight c3, we're just developing. We want to play bishop b5. We want to put more pressure on the spin. We would like maybe someone to bring the knight or bishop coming to, rather with green colors, sorry, knight coming to d5 and bishop coming to g4. So definitely much better position for black. Knight d2, trying to defend e4, not allow, like, let's say, some endgames. We can say it's like some Philidor style move, but in this particular case, the move order is a bit awkward. since the pawn is already on g3 and many times bishop is opting out to the e2 square. So wait, let's go, yeah, g92. Here we're going for the take on this, on the e4, trying to clarify the center. In case of the f5, which is actually very interesting move, it could be an alternative for you in case you're an aggressive player. You can go for something like this. But definitely it's very tactical, it's very dynamic position. You have to calculate here a lot. So that's why we're opting out for the d takes e4. We're trying to clarify the position, trying to ask some questions for white. What does white want to do? In case knight takes on e4, normally that's not how white wants to retake the pawn, because if you take the pawn on e4 with a piece, then potentially there could be some pushes and some attacks of this knight. So that's what we're doing. Actually, we're going for the f5. Knight goes back. We already won one tempo. Knight f6 and bishop d6. We almost fully develop. Knight f3 and short castle. Well, we have a very beautiful pawns on f5. We developed. We played actually f5 before we developed our knight, so we didn't have even to spend tempo with the knight moving away to push for f5. So it was actually a very good thing. We're going to finish developments with move such bishop e7. We can remaneuver our queen all the way to h5. King h8 is very logical and prophylactical move, so there are no issues on this diagonal. So yeah, pretty pleasant position. There is a slight edge here for black. That's awesome, and definitely, of course, there are some imbalances because of the pawns in the center. Also, bishop on g2 could be a strong piece. So it's not like we're crushing here, but we definitely have chances in this game, and a very pleasant position and to gain. So knight e4, and what happens if pawn takes on e4? Then we are going for the bishop c5. We already create some, I mean, not yet threats, but we already put pressure on the f2 pawn, and our bishop is on c5, so there is no possibility for white actually to challenge our bishop. So let's say if in this position something like knight g3 is played, then of course we're having very beautiful bishop f2 move. We're attacking the king, and king cannot take because we're capturing the queen. So yeah, so in this position definitely there is not much than bishop g2. Then we're continuing our development, and after knight f3 we just castle. And this is the moment where the knight b3 is actually a threat. So here we have to think prophylactically, and we have to go for the a5. We go for a5. What do we create with this move? First of all, we get more space. Let's say, yeah, we get more space on the queen side. We create a square on a7 for the bishop to go back. We potentially would like to push for a4 and getting more space. There are no b4 ideas, so it's very logical prophylactical move. In case of a4 is played, we go for the b6, because now we're having our bishop on c8, which would like to get out. And sorry, yeah, it's the end of the line actually. Yeah, the bishop is coming to a6, and of course, I mean, we are having this huge pressure on the f2 square. That's why our bishop is on c5. We have knight g4 moves attacking the pawn on f2. So there are some problems which white has to solve. And yeah, definitely we have an initiative in this position. I would say, I mean, it would be very pleasant to play this position for black, especially also considering the fact that bishop is a little bit stupid on g2. So we have better pieces, we have better development, and many threats. So in case of c3 in this position, not a4 but c3, which makes which is very logical move in such pawn structure. C3 is taking care of the d4 square, so there are no jumps with a knight. That's ideally what we also have to do, have to have pawn on c6, but definitely in this particular case, it's not even an issue yet, due to the fact simply that none of the knights wants yet, I mean, can actually yet go to the d5 square, and not even a question. So we go for a4. We're creating more space on the queen side. We want to go for the ideas like b6, as we mentioned earlier, bishop coming to a6, putting more pressure on f7, bringing the knight to g4. h6 could be a prophylactical move later in the game so that there is no bishop g5. So definitely a pleasant position, pretty similar to the previous one, but we have more space on the queen side. All right. That was all about g3. Generally, g3 is not a good move. So a3. Actually, I mean, a3 is not the bad move, right? I mean, a3 is not like spoiling much, but it feels more like a loss of a tempo. And we're going to play this position. I mean, we can say that with the reversed colors, we can play center gambit, because in this position we go for the d5. The center gambit from white is e4, e5, d4. So we're going to play this position reversed. But sorry, it was d3. Yes, d3, knight to6, and a3. So yeah, and we're going for d5. We're going for that center gambit, breaking with the d5 pawn. The takes, queen takes, knight c3. Yes, it's logical. We were talking about it, that it's better to, of course, to play d5 under circumstances where knight cannot go to c3, but it's not a horrible thing, because after queen goes back, originally we would be down a tempo in this, I mean, as we are black, we're down the tempo, but due to the fact of this a3 move, we're actually playing reversed center gambit. Otherwise, pawn would be on the on the a2 in this particular case. So knight f3, bishop d7, just a normal developing move. Long castle, bishop g2, knight d4. Yes, and here it's very important. I mean, our idea, of course, is to trade this bishop for the bishop on g2. Of course, it's a much stronger piece. We would like to trade our bishop. Rather, I would point out like this. Yeah, so we would like to trade it. And after knight f3, there is a big problem for white with which piece to take, because if you take with the bishop on f3, then there is knight e7. Of course, we still have the bishop c6 idea in the picture, but definitely, since the knight is already not on f3, there are ideas of breaking the position of white's king with the h4, h5 move, coming with the knight all the way to d4, trade the bishop, which is defending the king. But if queen takes, then we can actually, with a tempo, trade the bishops, which of course makes more sense than to play bishop c6 without the tempo. So trade, king goes away. It's just a prophylactical move, so there are no pins, no trades of the queen is possible. Unless we want it, of course. And of course, we want to push with the h pawn. Our knight will go somewhere to f4, potentially to the also to the d4. Our bishop, we will see where our bishop will be developed. It's difficult to say actually yet, but most likely for a moment somewhere on e7 or d6, looking good there. And yeah, well, the pawn march should try, and we should try to destroy the king. Definitely there are chances for white as well. White will try to create attack on our king on the queen side, but looking at the kings and king safety, I would say that it's rather white who has to worry about the king. So that was about a3. And yeah, bishop e3. This move, I mean, it's developing the piece, right? It's not the worst move in the world, but definitely there are better moves to be played. In case, for example, black is going for the knight of 6. That's the whole idea of white. White wants to go c4, and to stop the d5 ideas, transposing to the English opening actually. And after bishop b4, knight d2, so we're going to see this kind of setup. So we don't have to allow it. That's why we are not going for knight f6. but we go for the d5 instantly. We're not allowing any c4 problems. So takes, queen takes, knight c3, bishop b4, knight s3. We're developing our knight. It's going to f5, later occupying the square of the d4. So let's say bishop e2. Okay, in this case, knight d4 is already possible because we are creating some problems. There is a pressure on the g2 pawn. We can take anything we want. And well, of course, white cannot take on the d4 because we're going to recapture with the pawn, and this pin is going to be deadly for white. So after castle, we grab the piece on the c3 pawn, because of course we have a problem, right? The knight is attacking the queen, actually. Yeah, if there is no pin, then the knight is attacking the queen. Bishop takes, c3, pawn takes. We're trading some of the pieces. And after bishop g4, white is in the problem due to the spin. And well, we're going to also mess up the pawn structure on the queen side, which looks, I mean, it's computer says slightly better, but I would say it's very, very nice position. After these pawns are going to be also doubled. Or maybe there could be some ideas with knight going all the way to h4. Exploiting that pin. So bishop d2, going back, which is not so logical, but okay, bishop is going back, trying to defend from that pin, and also creating a threat of knight d5 again. So we kind of have to take, bishop takes, and in this position we go for knight g6. We want to go again for the square, f4. One of our knights is already on d4, the other wants to be on the f4. And actually very important that, of course, in this position is, I mean, it's a very comfortable position for black, definitely, but there are many moves obviously possible, and white can castle short, but in case white is not castling and trying to be flexible with the castle, let's say, now I can play short castle, long castle, I mean, I will still consider. There is a beautiful move. Bishop h3. Bishop h3, you cannot really take because we're going to take on f3. So that's why knight has to take the d4, pawn takes, bishop takes, and we're taking a dent on the g3. There is a check, of course, on the e3. King d7, we are not afraid of anything because we are threatening with the rook coming all the way to the e8. We're coming with the rook, and of course there are issues. And after queen, let's say, moves somewhere, I don't actually know where, but if queen moves somewhere, we have actually so many threats. I'm just looking at the position, but definitely taking on e2 is one of the threats, because okay, you can take with a queen, but I don't really think takes bishop here. Queen has to go away, because if queen goes to e3, then you're going to lose the queen. And after this, and there is a huge pressure. There is a huge pressure on the king. There is knight f4 and so on. So there is definitely a big advantage in the position actually, I don't know if we can say that advantage. Let me try to put that position again. Yes, here in this position, but definitely, actually, it's a huge advantage. Computer agrees with me. Okay, I just didn't want to say something which was not true, but computer agrees. There is a huge advantage for black. That was about bishop e3 after d3. And knight e3. Well, the thing is, after knight e3, we go knight f6, and this can actually, after knight f3, d5, transpose to the Scotch for knights. So that's you're going to find in that chapter. In case of f4, which is actually very important move, to know for black how to handle it. There are so many f4 moves at any possible at any possible move with any possible move order, as a gambit, as a king's gambit. In this particular case, it's not a gambit, so it's kind of that white would like to play king's gambit, but without actually playing a gambit, so just to capture a pawn immediately on the f4. So definitely what we have to see in this position, we have to look at the moves take on f4 and d5. So these are the two moves which are important in the position to look at as black and to decide with which one you're going. Definitely, if you're taking on f4, you're going to follow up with d5. So the question is, you take on f4 and then follow up with d5, or you play d5 instantly. And it's very important to react because white is playing very dynamic. f4 is a dynamic move. And in case we're just going to stay still, white is going to develop and just finish the development and say thank you very much. We have a very nice position. So in this particular case, we're taking on f4. Why is that? Because I mean, we could have played d5, but it's more precise. First to take on e4, bishop takes, and then go d5. Sorry. So here, in case knight takes d5, bishop take, pawn takes, we're coming with a queen. There is no knight c3, which can disturb our queen, as in previous lines, because knight is simply gone. We're ready to develop our bishops. We will see where we finish the development. Most likely we will castle long in the position. So white has to do something. And yeah, one more thing, actually. We sacrifice a pawn here. I forgot to mention that. So bishop c7 makes the most sense. In case you would like, you go for this, you have, as white, you have to take the pawn. And then, of course, since white is taking a pawn, we already have two active pieces. We develop one more. Bishop coming to the c5, queen f3. We don't want to trade here. We don't want to help. So let's differentiate the trade, yeah? In this case, this trade would be awful because we help white. We help white to develop and we're down the pawn. So definitely we go back, we attack the bishop, we introduce a new threat as knight d4. And after bishop goes back, we castle short. We want to introduce another threat, rook coming to e8, knight d4 again is still a threat. So let's say castle long, knight d4 is coming, queen h5. First of all, it's attacking the bishop on c5, so we have to go back. And it looks like queen is so close to our king, where we should be very scared. But actually, it's white who has to be scared. Because our next moves are going to be queen a5, bishop e6, huge problems on c2 and a2. And, well, it looks like much faster attack because we just need two moves. For white to do something, they need to bring the knight. It's two moves. Do something maybe with this bishop. I don't know actually what. But even if knight comes all the way to g6, we can play h6. So it's not really a problem. But huge problems is what white is having. That's why objectively this position is already lost for white. Okay, so that was knight d5. Feels more logical, of course, to play something like e5. But unfortunately, it's not working actually for white. Because we go d4, counterattack. White is attacking the knight on f6. We are attacking the knight on c3. And after take, the thing is that white actually has to take on c3. Because if white is taking on g7, we're taking. And then there are problems actually here. Because if you take them, there is a big problem. So yeah, that's why after take on c3, white has to take on c3 with a pawn. Queen takes f6, attacking the bishop and the pawn on c3. Bishop goes back defending. Bishop c5 creates actually a checkmate threat. So wait a second. Yes, it's a final position. Yeah, so there is a checkmate threat. White has to do something, while white is going to see what they're going to do. Most likely play knight f3 or something like this. We're going to castle, bring out the rook to e8. We're having more activity. We have more developed pieces, and definitely this position is has a clear advantage for black. Sorry. All right. So this was about f4. It's definitely important move to know how to handle. g4. G4, if you remember, we already had g4 with the queen on f3. This is a g4 without the queen on g3. And it's like, of course, it looks like a dubious move, even though it was played in the game of the Grandmaster. a few years ago, so it definitely makes sense to look and check how to react on this. So first of all, we're stopping g5 because this was original threat. G5 was a threat. We're stopping it with h6, bishop g2, and here we go bishop b4. We are creating a pin because not for fun, but we just want to go for the d5. This is our plan. We always would like, or not always, but in most of the cases, we're looking at this move. We're looking if we can go for it or we cannot go for it. And this is one of the cases where we do. So let's say h4 is played. It's very aggressive. So g5 is already the next move. It can be played. So here d5 is not possible yet due to the fact of this g5 coming. So we play d6. First of all, so we're attacking on g4. So white has to do something. And white is forced to push, which actually originally they wanted. But after takes, trading the rooks, knight jumping all the way to g4, starting putting some pressure on the pawn on f2, bishop can return and put even more pressure. The question is actually white happy with what they achieved? Because after f3, bishop c5, attacking the knight on the g1 square. And after take, we traded the knights. But the question is, was it worth it for white or not? Because we're going to finish the development with bishop e6. Actually, we're going to play after bishop 6, king d7. King will be in the center. Then queen is going to go all the way to h8 and try to create, attack on the king side. Also, the pawns are a bit problematic here for white. So, so bishop f3. Bishop is attacking the knight. We're defending with a queen. And our next move is going to be bishop c5. We would like to attack the pawn on f2. And then white is going to be forced to trade this bishop for a knight. It's not going to be a very happy trade for white. So this whole idea of g4, h4, g5 didn't really work out so well for white as probably they thought. So this was a h4. What happens if white is playing a bit slower, trying to stop the pin, trying to block, the pin, trying to block this idea of the d5? Well, we're actually taking the knight. That's why we originally came. We came on the b4 with a bishop to create a threat of the d5. Since there is no g5 in the picture any longer, there is no h4, then we are taking on c3, bishop takes, and we are going all the way with a d5. So if the pawn would be on h4, then we would have problems because g5 would be a move. But in this case, g5 is not a move. We create the pressure on the g4 pawn. We pushed for the d5. In case white is defending on h3, which I guess they should, we're just playing bishop e3, stabilizing our center. We're in the next move just going to finish the development, playing something like queen e7, castle, long. We might keep a pressure for some time, and then we will see what we're going to do. We might take at some moment on the e4, create some threat. Actually, definitely after castle, there is going to be a threat. But about pushing on d4, I'm not sure we're going to push on d4, but we might definitely. It could be a move, but first, of course, we have to think about that, because are we ready to release the pressure or not? And definitely after pushing something like d4, the position is going to get closed, and white has a bad bishop pair, so that might be kind of an advantage for black. But definitely each position has to be investigated, because in particular in this case we don't yet want to do it. Okay, so that was the g4 interesting move, but not so much. So g3, we already had g3 with the knight, without the knight on c3. So here not much is changing. Actually, we're going still for the d5. Because if it takes, we're going to look later. Let's see bishop g2 in case bishop g2 is played. Bishop g4. Actually, very interesting and important intermezzo in this case, because this bishop g4 move is destabilizing the position of the white, because there is no good move right now for white. In case bishop comes to f3, we say thank you very much, we go back. The bishop is misplaced on f3. The knight cannot be developed on f3. Well, yeah, bishop is awful there. It's not the place for the bishop. In case knight goes knight g to e2, then we're taking on the d4, on e4, sorry. Pawn takes. We are going for this endgame again. And after long castle, knight e3, bishop e6, we're getting a very pleasant endgame, very beautiful position. Our knight is ready to jump all the way to the b4, to the d4. Our bishop is ready to go to the c5. It's very beautiful position, while white has some issues. Of course, knight is very nice actually on e3. Let's not pretend it's not a beautiful piece, but the knight on e2, bishop on g2 are not so good pieces, and still a question for white how they're going to finish the development. So f3, in case f3 is played, of course, we're going back again. And this actually blocking the bishop, blocking the attack on the d4, on the d5. So the only move which makes sense in this position is continue with f4, trying to create more kind of problems. And again, this is the move we have to react to. We cannot slow down, because the next move can be already a f5. So we got to take. We take bishop f4, and now again we're going for the spin. Bishop b4, threatening d4, attacking the knight, trying to win the knight. So in case of the take, e takes d5, knight takes d5. We are putting so much pressure on this knight on c3. There is a pin. We're attacking the bishop on f4. We have a very nice active positions with all the pieces are being out. Next move, we are ready to finish the development. Actually, we could even potentially castle long, and we can decide. But most likely, we're going to castle short. It's more safe, but definitely queen d7, castle in long is possible. Very comfortable position to play. A very nice advantage, clear actually advantage for black in this position. So this was about the bishop g2 move. Yes, so we were discussing in this position, so d5. The most principal way is, of course, what happens after take on d5. And here we can already see that definitely doesn't make sense to take with a knight on the d5, because then we would just take with a queen, again attack the rook all the way on h1. We would have similar position as in the third move g3, but without this knights. So knights are absent. But that's why, of course, white is not taking the knight. It makes no sense. Bishop g2, bishop e6, defending the knight. If knight g2, which might seem so logical, so knight is defending the knight, so that after knight takes on c3, pawn is not taking. Even though we had a chance to take on the c3, we didn't really want to help. Because if we take here, there could be potential ideas of creating this pressure on the b7 pawn, so we don't really want that. So that's why we play bishop e6. So knight g2. First, we look at that move. So defending the knight. But the bad thing about knight on e2, first of all, it's targeting two squares where it cannot go. Definitely it's controlling those squares, but it cannot go to neither square. And also knight on f3 would be so much better, because the square on h4 right now is undefended, and potential pawn push is definitely there, and it's possible. So let's say queen d7, castle, long castle, and now we have this already here in the position. h5, h4, potentially even h3 is in the picture. Our king is safe. We're not taking on c3 yet. We don't want to open up the b file. So yeah, very nice position for black to attack. So a knight f3 is definitely a better move than knight g2, because knight is keeping eye on potential pawn push. And after queen d7, there is also knight g5 idea, attacking our bishop. But here after bishop g4, there is no time for white to take on d5. So basically, basically bishop g4 is with the tempo, so there is no problem. And knight cannot be taken on the d5. So let's say castle happens, long castle, trade on d5, c3. And now, of course, white would like to attack since we have a king on the c8. White would like to attack on the queen side. We would like to attack on the king side, so that's why we start f6. We would like to push the pawns, g5, h5, bring the queen all the way to h7. h4 is also a push. So let's say b4. Here we play king b8. Definitely both sides are attacking. There is initiative for our side. There is, of course, attack possibility for white, but looking at the location of the pieces is definitely looks like it's more. I mean, our attack might be faster with the g4, h5 because we don't have so many pawns. Because for our king on the queen side, our pawns are located on all on the 7th rank, so it's going to be more difficult for white to reach our pawns. While we're going to reach the pawn while we go for h5, g4, g5, and then h4, and we're going to already try and attack the pawn on the g3, try to open some files. So yeah, that was the move. Oh, wait a second, what was that move? That was actually knight c3. Let me check again, just that I'm not missing anything. Yeah, that was the move, knight c3. Okay, so f4. F4 is another move, and that's what we were talking about with this. What happens after the d3 move? That's after knight f6. F4 is very challenging move. That's why we go for the knight c6. We don't play yet knight f6, but first knight c6. And again, we have the same question as always. The big question. What do we actually do here? Because in this case, we don't have the knight on f6 yet. There is no knight on c3. It's a different position where f4 is played. And as I was already told you guys, you have to look at the d5 move and pawn take on the f4. In this particular case, both moves working nicely, but more forcing and maybe more precise is first to take on f4, bishop takes, and d5. d5, we're breaking. Of course, we don't want to, like, if we just stand still this position, it's a beautiful pawn chain for white. We have to do something. We must break with a d5. d5, pawn takes, queen takes. Let's say if white is just developing the pieces with knight f3. Of course, let's not forget the pawn is hanging on c7. This is in different other lines. Let's say knight f3 is played. We have bishop g4. We're pinning that knight. Bishop e2, short long castle, and h4. And then we already start our play on the king side. We start to play against the king. We want to develop the bishop. The knight is coming out. The pawn push f6, g5 is also there. Or big opportunities for an attack from on the king side. So what happens if bishop takes on c7 is definitely the way why would white want to go for this is to take the pawn. But after we already seen so many examples of us showing that developing and actually active pieces are so much worth so much more than just the pawn, that we can repeat it again. So knight c3, of course, challenging our queen. Very logical. Bishop b4, stopping that attack. Queen d2, introducing the attack again. And queen goes away. First of all, we're attacking the knights. Potentially, we create a double pawn here. Second, we introduce the knight d5 jump, which would not only attack the knight on c3, but also the bishop on c7. So something has to be played. And after long castle, knight d4, queen goes away from the pin, checking our king. But bishop e6 is a perfect developing and defending move at the same time. So it's just a perfect move. And after knight d5, queen takes d5. Actually, yeah, there is a big threat right now. The knight d4 is in the position after queen moved all the way to the e2. Knight d4 is a big threat. So c4 also stopping ideas of taking on a4. Queen d7, bishop goes away. Short castle, and even though we're down a pawn, our position is super active. Our king is much safer than the white king. We want to go for the knight d4. We want to try to break the position of the white on the queen side. So very nice position for black. In case here white wants to be smart and play something like knight e4, there is a very unusual move in this position. And maybe, I mean, I would like you to stop actually the video and try to find the best move. Maybe you're going to find it. So I don't know if you found the move, because it's very unusual, and it's for sure not the first move which is coming to your attention. But it actually should, because the moves we're trying to look for usually are like checks, captures, and threats. And in this particular case, it's actually check. And it's actually a pretty forcing one. It's queen d3, queen e3 check, threatening to trade the queens. And the threat is following. If king is going away, we would like to take the queen and just capture the bishop on c7, because let's not forget it, but the bishop is under attack. So what white has to do is queen takes e3, knight takes 3, but then there is a problem for rook. Rook has no squares. There is also attack on the bishop on f1. So we're winning material here, and I would say also a game for it a bit later. So that was actually all about the d3 move. That was the last line with the f4. So now we're going for the knight e2. This, of course, like this move doesn't look better than knight coming all the way to f3, which is played in the many main openings. But of course, knight e2 is still deserves to be played, and it's called a Lapin's opening. So, and also the idea, of course, of white is to control the d4 square. And it was also played by many strong players, by many grandmasters. So we go with a knight c6. We continue with knight c6 because, I mean, there are many actually moves for black. But sometimes we might transpose some openings, and in order not to learn so many new things, we decided to go with a knight c6. So in case of knight d4, let's say, takes, and then we transposed already to the Scotch game, which would happen via knight f3, knight c6, this move order. So we would have this position. So yeah, let's go knight e2. So this is transposing. Knight g3, well, this is just not a good square for the knight. And in this position, we are going for the d5 instantly. We're attacking the pawn on e3, on e4. Takes is not as good any longer as it would be in the other lines. And after d3, actually, I would like you to stop the video and try to find the best move for black in this position. I hope you found the move. It's actually, I don't know if it's easy, but it looks easy, but maybe not the first move which you consider. It's h5, or immediately trying to challenge that knight on the g3, because h4 in the next move is going to be a move. And actually, the problem for white is that it feels, actually, maybe it's not such an easy move, because the pawn is actually attacked. But the problem for white, that pawn cannot be captured, since after take on e4, we're trading the queens and we are winning the piece, so it's not really possible for tactical reasons. So h4 blocking the pawn, g6, we're finishing our development, defending the pawn. We want to go and we want to develop knight f6. We can push also the d4 at some moment that we are going to see. Knight f6, bishop e7 attacking the h4, also all moves are possible. Very nice and comfortable position with some misplaced pieces for white. So g3 is again not a good move. Many times in this rare second moves, this g3 is a move, but it's not simply not good. And definitely, as always, we are playing the d5. In case knight b3 takes bishop g4, bishop g2, knight d4 trying to exploit the pin. Knight goes back, has to defend it, but in this position already after queen d7, you're ready to castle long. We are ready to continue developing our pieces. Our bishop can go all the way here. We can play also the f5, knight f6. So yeah, we have we have a pretty huge advantage in this position and big initiative. Bishop g2, trying to attack the pawn on d5. So we have to do something about it, and we're just capturing an e4. And generally, it's, I think, a good move, a good rule to remember that if we can bring some piece to e4, we are going to take on e4. Because let's say the pawn is on d3 and then pawn is taken, then we're going to consider, do we take on e4 or do we not take on e4? But in this case, we take, because in the next move, of course, in this position, actually, we already have bishop h3 idea, which definitely we can play and continue playing from here. But very nice is also knight f6 with a tempo, attacking the bishop, bishop goes back, bishop s3. With the next move, we're going to finish the development and push the pawn all the way to the h4, maybe h3, breaking the position of the king, because most likely that's where the white is going to castle their king. And what I wanted to say, yeah, that's actually good always to have a piece. It's always good for black that white has a piece on the e4, because then we can always challenge it with a knight f6, with the f5, with all this kind of moves. So this was a g3 option, f4. F4 again, another option, another version of the f4. So what happens here? Do we take on f4? Do we push d5? I mean, in such positions, since we already went through one of the concepts, you can also stop the video and try to consider by yourself if you want to. If you want to make it, of course, more useful and kind of a learning experience for you and trying to puzzle yourself, challenge yourself. But yeah, f4, and here we have to consider what happens if we take and then push d5, or if we push d5 immediately. And here, definitely, the move is obvious, because we don't want to help. We don't want to help white. Why should we help white? The knight is awkward on e2. We keep it there. We play... Actually, wait. In this particular case, we go for bishops. Oh my god, yes, that's actually the... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I tricked you guys, yeah? I said, what do we do here? We take on f4 and then d5, and or we play d5 immediately. Actually, neither of this. Yeah, that's... yeah, I forgot. Sorry for that. Exactly. So we learned already that we take on f4, play d5. We play d5 without taking on f4. But in this particular case, okay, as we already said, that taking on f4 would be helping white. But in this particular case, we're going to learn an exception. So d5 would be great. It would be a good move. And but in this position, bishop f5, bishop c5 is even stronger move. Because the question now for white is what to do. In case white is taking on the e5, we can go and play in the gambit style, just sacrificing the pawns. We play d6, because in next moves we want to develop our pieces all the way to g4 and h4. In case of d4, we're just going to not care about the bishop. We're just giving a check. And the problem here is that after g3, we're taking on e4, attacking the rook all the way on h1. We're going to capture on d4. And after knight g3, we have bishop takes d4. And, well, this pawn is also hanging. Bishop g4 is the move, so position is already lost for white. What happens if white is accepting the gambit? Well, the position is getting so beautiful. Queen h4 check, knight g3, and here we play very tiny little move, bishop d6, attacking the knight. And now there is a problem due to the pin. Pawn cannot capture on g3, so that's a huge threat already, and let's say queen f3 trying to defend knight d4, and we're taking because the queen cannot defend too many pieces. Queen is overextended, and after queen takes on c2, we take on g3, and it's completely winning position once again. So white shouldn't accept the gambit, but should play knight bc3, d6, just defending the center. And in case white wants to try to do something about the bishop on c5, which is logical because in some lines we tried ourselves to do something against the bishop on c4. In this case, yeah, bishop on c5 is a good piece. White has to try to do something about it. We go for something else. We go for bishop g4. We allow white to take on the c5. First take here. But we don't care about that pawn on the e5. We go for another check. g3, queen h5. We are trying to put more pressure on the knight, trying to create more and more problems for white with the pin. But after knight c5, pawn takes. So it looks like white is up a pawn. We have some very nice ideas already in the position to play bishop f3, not only attacking the pawn on e4 and rook on h1, but also potentially taking the pawn on h2, winning material. So it's pretty much unstoppable. And of course, in case something like bishop g4, g2, we're going to go for the knight d4, and big problems for white. So in case of d3 trying to be more solid, we are going for the a5. So if knight is not coming to a5 immediately, we are in time to stabilize our bishop, because now knight coming to a4 would not make so much sense, because after knight a4 we would just simply go back with the bishop. So okay, now we go for the main move of this this line, f5. So not main move of the whole variation, but just so f5. We have to break. We have to try to break it almost instantly. We are not allowing this huge space advantage for white. So there is a big problem already with the pawn on f5. White has to do something, but after knight g3, queen h4, there are still issues. And even though white is trying to solve and counterattack, we are just defending. We are playing it cool. We are just chill, because it doesn't make much difference if we lost the castle in this particular case. Our king is safe on d1. King isn't safe on d1, but it's definitely not much safer than our king. And definitely there are issues always with a take on f4 for white, and definitely clearly better position for black. So this was a f4 move in the line of knight e2. Knight bc3 looks like it's going to it might transpose to the squash game anyway. So let's say we go here, of course. Let's mention knight f6. We develop our knights. g3. So again, if a d4 is played, then we are transposing. But yeah, g3 is played. So we go again for the d5. This we already discussed so many times. I don't even ask you. I think you all learned it already. So the question is, what do you do? Do you take? Do you not take? So bishop g2, trying to keep more pressure. We're taking on e4. Knight takes, trading the pieces. And we have similar position, which we had, but without knights. Yeah, we had knights. We had the same position with a knight on b1 and g8. This case, we don't have the knight to challenge the bishop any longer. So we can go for that idea, which I mentioned earlier, bishop h3. Because in that case, we're going to stop white from castling. And definitely there are some problems with the development right now for white, which we are causing. So yeah, great position. And definitely next move, we're going to play queen d7, long castle, which is great for black. d3, trying to defend, trying to be solid. D takes e4, we are trying to go for the better endgame for black. D takes e4, queen d1, trading all the pieces. Bishop f4, there is no way to play f3. There is a threat, actually, bishop f3, and white is simply collapsing. Castle in the next move is most likely to be played. Knight d4, trying to use this pin. I mean, so many threats, and it's so difficult to handle all of them. Completely lost for white. E takes d5 looks like the most challenging move, but after knight takes, definitely white doesn't want to take on d5 because queen takes, again, as in other lines, attacking the the rook on h1. Bishop h2, bishop e6 looks similar to the line we had. Yes, and the difference is we're taking on c3 in this particular case. But that was actually not a big problem because, for example, here it's a big question for white what to do, to take with a knight or to take with a pawn. As we discussed earlier, we don't really want this the b file. In case knight takes, which looks tempting because you're not doubling any of the pawns, and the knight is a good piece on the c3 square. We go queen d7, and then we just castle along. We potentially want to bring the pawn all the way to h4, try to do some damage on the king side. But in case pawn takes, then we can play bishop d5. Then we are trading that very annoying bishop on c2, and after that we can even castle. And the thing here is that in this position, knight is on e2, very bad piece due to actually these pawns. So first of all, knight can go to d4, then cannot go to f4, also cannot go to g3 or c3. So that's kind of it. f4, another version of the f4. It's a different version of f4. The one previous was without the knights on f6 and c3. Here again, you can stop the video, try to consider what you do first. Take on f4 or push d5 or neither and something else. But normally it's a rule, almost always it's pretty much a rule, so there is only one exception. So in this case, we go for d5 because it's very logical. We don't want to help. We don't want to help white. We're not playing help chess. We're playing chess. We want to win ourselves. We go for d5. And the problem is here for white, no move is actually, I mean, you have to play some move, but no move is actually very good because sometimes it feels when you're breaking the center so much, there should be something there. But fe5, which might feel like a great move, intermezzo, we take on e4 in this position. And after d4, bishop b4, we create more problems. Another pin, this bishop b4, bishop g4, very thematic moves. Bishop d2, and here we're taking not with the knight, but with the bishop. We keep the knight on the very beautiful e4 square. Bishop g4 is next, another pin. We want to go for queen h4 check, trying to exploit the king's position. So it's definitely a very dominating position for black. In case of g3, makes some sense to stop some checks from the queen, developing the bishop, probably castle short. We go already and try again to place another. This bishop b4, bishop g4 are very thematic moves in our today's chapter. Queen d3, queen d7, and yeah, basically in this position we're pretty much winning. I'm very close to it because after long castle we want to play bishop f6. We would like also to break the center. King is going to be an issue, definitely. Our knight is amazing. Our pieces are just amazing here. Perfect position. So what happens in case of e takes d5? Of course, we take with the knight. Pawn takes on e5. And it's important, we are not taking on e5, but we're playing bishop g4. We're just putting more pressure. The pawn is not running away. We can take it anytime if we want. It's not running away. Even though with the d4, it's the only way how white can keep the pawn and kind of saying that it's running away, but it's losing time. And after bishop b4, we're creating even more problems. We are putting even more pressure. Now we have one pin on the queen, the other on the king. Very, very unpleasant to handle. Bishop d2, let's try. Let's say white is trying to stop this pin, and then we go back. And then we go back, and now we have a threat actually of taking on the d4, because with a bishop on before we couldn't have yet done it, but now it's actually a threat and we developed a piece, so we're kind of losing time. Very smart move. And also another idea of the bishop f7, that it can also check at some moment the king from the h4, because most likely queen is going to be on the d5 after knight takes, queen takes. So queen d3, trying to defend everything and going away from the pin. Bishop a5, just going back and introducing another thread. Knight coming to the b4 is a new thread in the position. Also queen d7, bishop f5 is another thread. Just simply, the position is ideal for black. So many pieces, everything is working. We are ready to play queen d7. We can castle both sides, actually. We will see what white is going to do, but okay, castling long is probably more, I mean, feeling more natural, but castling short is also not a huge problem. I mean, it's everything is good, but I would rather castle long, because maybe we would like to try to break this e5 pawn with the f6 pawn. Amazing position and dominating position for black. So that was about the knight e2 move, this Lapin's opening, and now we're going to our kind of main line of the unusual moves. It's actually the Portuguese variation, Portuguese opening. Not very popular, and we can also understand why it is not so popular. I mean, simply bishop is coming to b5. I'm just associating this position, just let's say with knight f3, knight c6, and bishop here. So just have this position without the knights. Looks a bit weird, right? Why would we have this position without the knights? But yeah, bishop b5 is definitely a move. It's theoretical move, dubious, of course, we can say, because it's helping a lot black. But of course, it was played and tried, but definitely not at the most, not at the very top. So c6, very logical. That's what actually white wants, that c6 is played, and we are happy to play it. So there are two moves for white going. Okay, it's not a move actually going all the way back, but going back to the c4, or to the a4. So let's start with the c4. c4 actually coming immediately with on the tempo, another tempo, so d5. So we kind of it was for free to go c6 and d5, which we are happy about. So if bishop goes back, knight comes to c6, we have a very nice center. Let's not forget about that. Knight f6, bishop g5. We defend everything. We have perfect center. Not much to say. I mean, there is a slight edge. Of course, like white didn't do something extremely wrong, but lost a lot of time. That's why we have this very nice center. So in case after takes on d5, bishop goes to b5 with a check, which looks normal and logical, we go knight c6. We're not afraid of any of takes. And after d4, we take. And actually, very interesting fact about the current position. This position was, I mean, it's very funny, because it is a transposition of the game of Magnus Carlsen against Grandmaster Sanal on the on Lichess in 2021. They played this game online, and it's amusing that it was exact transposition, but of course there was a bomb cloud played, so that's why the king would not be legally possible to castle. But here Magnus blundered queen a5, and the bishop is gone, and that was a win against Magnus. Okay, but yeah, jokes aside, queen d4 is definitely a move, because we cannot capture the queen, because it's illegal. Knight f6, knight f3, just developing, just continuing the development. Bishop d6, castle. Bishop queen h4, trying to introduce in the next move something like bishop g5. And here, the moment where we go knight e7, and a very, very strong move. And actually, it just shows how much white is actually struggling also with the queen. We have, I mean, we have the isolated pawn. Let's not forget about that. But we can leave with the pawn. We can definitely have a position. Well, there are still issues for white to solve. Issue with the queen, issue with the pieces on the queen side. So we're definitely in the driver's seat in this position. Bishop a4, that's another option how white can continue. After c6, d5, we still continue our plan. We go for it. We go for the break. In case white goes for the d3, we're going for an endgame once again. We're going for an endgame because it's more pleasant. And here, I mean, in that endgame, bishop was on f1. Now bishop is on a4. It's still not a good bishop because it's closed from the game, and we can actually, there is a threat already going for something like knight c5 and trying to get that bishop. Knight f3, already a huge mistake, because after we take on e4, white might think, okay, there is knight e4. I gave up a pawn, I take a pawn, but there's a queen a5. Very nice move, attacking both bishop and the knight. And one piece is going to be gone, which should result in the losing in the game eventually after converting it. That's actually a very important question, right? To win the winning games and positions. Super difficult to convert sometimes. Okay, queen e2. Looks logical, trying to put some pressure on the king, but after take. And generally, we were speaking about this. If we can bring some piece of white on the e4 square, so if not the pawn is taking, we are definitely doing it. Or not definitely, but we should consider doing, because of course it cannot work tactically, let's say. But in this case, it's working perfectly, because bishop d6, in the next move, we want to go for the knight f6. We want to attack the queen. We want to continue. We want to keep the position going. Knight f6, queen h4, e4, provoking the e4 move, but actually it's good for black, because after castle h6, even though we give up a pawn, the problem is that our pieces are simply super active. Where does the queen go? If it goes to f3, then we have queen h4 and we are winning. And after queen d3, so now already this would not work because there could be the f4 move, I assume. Oh wait, actually I cannot go h4 because queen can take on d6. But we go here a5 in this position because we create another threat. We want to push and try to win the bishop. So a3 has to be played, but now knight coming to a6. The next threat is a knight c5 trying to trade the bishop. So after bishop e3, knight c4, we take the bishop, and here, okay, probably queen takes is possible, but after there is always this queen h4, which white has to look out for. And after g3, bishop g4, actually very nice move. We're trading, or we're offering a trade of the queens, but we're definitely going to be the one who is going to win this game because of the all spoiled pawns and all the problems for white. And of course, our beautiful, beautiful bishop pair for black. Okay, we're continuing, guys. We're continuing with the e takes d5. So going with this d5 move, we have to understand we are ready to take with a queen on d5, because after e d5, it's the only legal take on d5. We cannot take with a pawn due to the pin. But it's okay, we are fine with that, because actually in the next move we are threatening taking on g2. So knight f3 looks like a logical move, but after queen d4, we're taking the bishop. Yeah, that's not really possible. So that's why queen f3 must be played. And after queen f3 is played, we're continuing our development. We continue what we wanted to do. We just develop our pieces. Knight c3, attacking the queen. Of course, white doesn't want to trade yet, because then the knight would be more... Sorry. White knight would be more active. So knight c3 looks like a logical way. Knight is attacking the queen. Queen is going away. Well, of course, somewhere it has to go. And of course, in case of the d3, there is going to be some kind of a pin. So knight g2, trying to continue the development. And bishop e6, castle, knight d7. And well, the thing is that we're just going to, we're having, first of all, no problems. We have all pieces developed. And one thing is here, after queen a5 has been played, the bishop b3 move, is not so simple, because after bishop b3 takes, the capture with the a pawn is not really possible due to the spin. So this should have be played, and that would actually isolate the d pawn. It would double the b pawn, so it would be not really a good position in the endgame. So very tough actually for to find moves for white in this position. Bishop b3 first, that is more logical, because in that position we had before, bishop was already on e6. So here we want to still try to exploit the position of the bishop with going with the knight all the way to c5. So a3, of course, knight c5 already doesn't make sense because bishop will just go away. So after a3, we play bishop d6, we continue our development. And of course, there is some problem for white, because what do you want to do? As castle is not really working, because after castle, knight c5, bishop goes away, e4, pushing, and there are not so many good squares actually for the queen. Okay, queen still goes to e3, but after bishop takes on h2, there is a big problem, because you cannot take on h2. There is a beautiful fork. It's not family fork, but yeah, king and queen are, it's for sure the most difficult part. And in this position, that's why king h1 has to be played. So I would like to ask you to stop the video and try to find the best move in this position for black. So I hope you found the move. It's not an easy one, but it's a nice tactical idea. Knight b3, giving up a knight, attacking the rook right now. So you have to take it. But after queen h5, it's completely winning, because our threat is just go bishop h3 and checkmate. And it is pretty much unstoppable, unless you will sacrifice your queen and all the rest of the pieces. Going back, we're going to check definitely at d3, but that's what we were speaking. We were talking about it earlier. If d3 is played, then the pin is opening up, and yeah, already his knight is not really good functioning as it was before. But of course, there is no e4 any longer, so that's why it's a good move. But there are still some issues about it. Even though in this case e4 still can be played, super strong move, because after d takes e, we're introducing the knight to the play. The whole idea of the e4 in this case was actually to go for with the knight to e5, attacking the queen. And there are some big problems. Where are you going to put the queen? We're just keeping attacking it. Bishop g4, and after h5 there is a huge threat already to trap the queen. And if not for that, then we already threaten to take on e4, because bishop is already defended by the pawn. Yeah, definitely tough position to face, and I would say losing position for white. Knight g3, going with the knight all the way somewhere to the e4, f5, trying to stop the pawn on the e5 push, e4 push, definitely very logical. But knight c5 as earlier, attacking the bishop and also attacking the square on the e4 and going all the way to e6. And now there are also some stress, like knight d4. It's very, very comfortable square for the knight, very good square. There's knight, there are so many ideas for this knight to jump around. And yeah, well, we are super comfortable. We finish our development. It's definitely a slight edge here for black, but I would say it's very comfortable to play. E takes d4, e takes d5 we just looked at. And now we go with a knight c3. Is the most common move in the position. It's also threatening to take, so we have to do something here, and we're going for a5, creating a threat. We want to trap the bishop. Big threat is happening, and well, now what white has to do? White has to do something about the bishop. If bishop goes to b3, then we're just going to play d4. Knight has to go back, and we're just going to keep attacking the bishop till it's on the most awful square in the position, on d3. And after that, we're just free to develop. Actually, looking at the position, it's move number 8, and we played 7 moves with the pawns. All moves were pawn moves so far. And actually, position is amazing. Knight a6, we continue development. Some moment knight b4, knight c5 are the moves. Knight f3, bishop d6, just defending a pawn. We want to introduce our knights in the position. It's a clearly better position, and Black's vice position doesn't look good at all. In case of a3, which looks more logical, I mean, it's the only move if you don't want to play with a bishop on d3. Well, then we're just taking on e4. And again, another rule, the rule again, as we were discussing it, taking on e4 is good when we can bring a piece on that square. Knight takes, knight f6. It's a threat to trade a piece. Knight takes f6, queen takes f6, knight sees knight f3, and we are creating problems. The pin, and now the bishop is completely misplaced. You would like to have bishop somewhere on e2 defending the pin, but it's not there. And let's say after d3, knight coming, knight can come to c6. We always have a threat of taking and doubling the pawns. We can develop the bishop to d6. We can consider where we would like to castle, long or short, but definitely the position is amazing for for black, sorry. And white is the one who is kind of in trouble here. But still, it's pretty much, I mean, it's objectively it's still an equal position, but there is for sure initiative for black. So that was actually all about the chapter, and we're going to go through some key moments in this chapter, just to try to summarize everything and try to remember. So first position we're going to look at is was happening. It was in other. It was queen f3 move. And here, after the d3 is played, we kind of already equalize the position. We are even better due to all this pawn structure on the queen side. We potentially want to play with something like the d5. And that's why a very ambitious move is going g6 in this position. Bishop is very good on g7 in this position. We want to play f5. So this is very typical to go for the g6, bishop g7 in this particular case. I mean, not this particular case, but also in similar structures. Okay, very nice idea as well in this position. We're down a pawn, but it's very important that we should not be scared to trade pieces. Should not be scared to trade queens, because queen of white is actually an active piece. After we trade with the queens, we are trading the only active pieces, the only active piece actually for white. And after that, we're going to go for a very nice endgame with a bishop pair. We're going to have a big initiative. That's why please don't be scared to trade the queens. Just look into it, and if there is something worth it, you can actually go for it and even increase the pressure on your opponent. The next position is after knight e2, after knight was placed, and then it stopped the knight d4 idea. Very thematic move in this position is trying to target the key piece in the position for white. The key piece is a bishop on c4. So we would like to target this with a knight a5. It's just very important to remember that knight a5 is there in the position. So yeah, in this position, white just played bishop g5. That's also important to mention what was the last move. And there are some threats in the position. So in this case, and many similar positions, we would like to first ask question to bishop. What do you want to do with your bishop? Do you want to trade it? Do you want to go back and be closed on g3 potentially? Or you want to go all the way back? So that's always good to ask the question to the bishop. Also later, definitely we would like to go for the d5 push, that's why we need that h6 move. So essentially, so that this d5 move is actually happening, because after bishop goes away, we go c6, and we threaten to play G5 and D5. This is a huge threat. This position is very early, actually already after second move, but yeah, very, very thematic. So first of all, the c3 is played and knight cannot go here. So we are happy to break the center with a d5 because after queen takes, there is no knight c3 with a tempo. The next position is here. Also, another reminder that you shouldn't afraid to trade the pieces. And offering a trade is actually a threat. So here knight c6 is a great move in this position. Because you're offering a trade of the pieces, the knight is a super active piece on the d4. And after trade, you're left with the active queen and the nice pawn on the e4. After that, your development is actually very easy. In this position, I believe bishop e3 was the last move. Yes. So here, a very nice move, bishop f5, introducing the idea of trading on d4, taking the knight on b1, and playing bishop b4 is definitely very important to remember. The next position we have is the f4 move in this position with d3. In this position, both moves are great. I mean, both taking on f4 and d5, but we are going in the course for take on f4. It's more precise in that way, but definitely just a reminder for you to remember that in such positions, after f4 is played, there are two reactions which are very typical for us. Either take and d5 immediately, or d5 without taking on f4. Or there is some, of course, there is an exception, but mostly we're going to have these two options. The next position is bishop after bishop was played to g2. So yeah, bishop goes to g2, and here white didn't play d3, defending the pawn with the pawn. So it's always good if we can take. Always good. I don't say always, but most likely it's going to be good to take on e4 if white is recapturing with a piece. So this is one of the also thematic ideas from this chapter. Taking on e4, if white takes with a piece, it's going to be easier later to attack that piece. Next position, another f4, another version of f4. In this case, let's remove this knight, doesn't matter. So in this particular case, we don't take on f4 because we don't want to help white. We don't want to help them develop the knight, but we want. Wait a second. Yeah, exactly. We go for the d5 here. I wanted to think for a second if it was an exception, but it was not. Yes, so here we go instantly for the d5 here. And the next position, I believe this is the last position. After queen coming to e2, similar rule to the previous position we had. If we can take on e4, we should consider it and most likely do it. If we can take on e4 and the piece takes on e4, not a pawn, we shall do it. And in this particular case, it's also working perfectly. Defending on e5, next move is knight f6, attacking the queen, and trying to use that the piece is actually vulnerable on the e4 square. That was it for today. It was the chapter 145, unusual second moves. I hope it was useful for you. You enjoyed, and I'm going to see you in the next chapter.